That was a group of young, impressionable, and mostly white children at a public school in Brooklyn. My inside sources, they are telling me that the school, which is probably named something like PS 209, it is under consideration to be renamed as the Islamic Indoctrination Center of New York City. The kids in that video, they couldn't have been more than 5, 6, maybe 7 years old. And during school hours, when they're supposed to be learning how to read, or as they call it in the Somalian Republic of Minnesota, leering. They're supposed to be leering how to read. They're supposed to be leering how to write their names. But instead, they were taken to what looked to be a playground to learn about Islamic culture. You know, doofus Democrats continue to push the false narrative that we are a nation of immigrants. Diversity is our strength. The party of the donkey wants us to believe that the foundation of America was built on diversity. I'm sure you'll be surprised to know this narrative is a steaming pile of donkey turds. In 1950, nearly 90% of the American population was white. 10% was black, with immigrants from foreign countries representing around 0.5% of the overall population. I don't know about you guys, but that doesn't sound very diverse to me. After World War II, or as Omar Elon prefers to call it, World War XI, there was a massive influx of immigrants coming into the United States. They were fleeing war-torn countries in Europe, Germans, Italians, people from Spain, Poland. Most of them, they came into the country with nothing. And the overwhelming majority, they were not asking for a handout. They weren't demanding 5-star accommodations at the Four Seasons. They weren't demanding for Americans to embrace the culture that they had just escaped. They shared the positive aspects of their culture, but they wanted to embrace and assimilate to American culture. Perhaps the biggest problem that came from that era of immigration, it was the mafia. The mafia was established during Prohibition in the 1920s, but the golden age of the mafia, it was really from the 1950s into the 1980s. They took over neighborhoods. Joe Colombo, he established the Italian-American League to fight supposed discrimination against Italians. The main discrimination they seemed to be fighting was investigations from the FBI into organized crime, fraud. Is this starting to sound a little bit familiar? Today, the white population in America has declined to just under 62%. Now, if you include Hispanics, people from Mexico or Latin America, it's around 75 to 80%. Like the 50s and 60s, America is dealing with an influx of immigrants. We are dealing with a group that's looking to establish themselves. But there is a huge difference between the immigrants of the 50s and what we are seeing today. The mafia was an organization that loved capitalism. Most of the dudes in the mafia, they also loved America. They were not looking to change the country. The mafia, they were exploiting the weaknesses to make money. Today, we are dealing with an influx of cultures from third world countries. Cultures that, for the most part, do not align with American values. Like the mafia, Islamists are looking to control neighborhoods. But instead of assimilating to American culture, Islamists are spreading their radical ideology. They are looking to exploit the weaknesses in our system and destroy it. But Zohran Mamdani, he is quickly figuring out destroying America is much easier said than done. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at Casey_BTL84. Let's go and get to the sponsor for today's video, my good friends at American Attitude. Here in a couple of months, America will be celebrating its 250th birthday. 250 years of freedom, 250 years of being the greatest country in the world. Due to a certain political party that's anti-American, I'm sure July 4th will be intentionally divisive. But you can show your love and support for our country and our great military with patriotic gear from American Attitude. American Attitude is more than a clothing brand. It is a movement for people who love faith, freedom, and a good punchline. They've got plenty of hats and shirts that celebrate 250 years of American freedom, but my personal favorite, it's the infidel t-shirts and hoodies where you're displaying your pride at being labeled as an infidel. They've also got patriotic hoodies and tumblers to keep the beverage of your choice iced down during the summer. American Attitude strives to bring patriotic Americans together through humor and unapologetic American grit. So click the link in the description or the pinned comment below. Use my promo code BTL10, BTL10. Receive 10% off your first purchase with American Attitude. During his campaign, Zoran Mamdani presented himself as the happy-go-lucky doofus. Hey friends, it's me, Zoran Mamdani. I'm a democratic socialist. What that means is, if I get elected, everything will be free. Free bus service, free education, free healthcare, free food. And the best part is, the free food, it will be delicacies from Somalia. Tasty dishes like roasted roach or sauteed spiders. Yummy! Like most communists, Zoran Mamdani was brilliant at highlighting affordability issues in New York City. As is always the case with communism, Zorro's plan to combat economic inequality was to take money from rich people and give it to people who produce nothing but toxic ass gas. But there's just one problem, one tiny problem. Zorro is realizing that rich people have options. One of the ways rich people maintain their wealth is not giving their money to the government. As a result, New York City is facing a massive economic crisis, and unsurprisingly, Zoran Mandani doesn't seem to have the answers. Watch it for yourself.
New York City faces a budget crisis of a historic magnitude. We inherited a deficit larger than any since the Great Recession. We cannot close this deficit with savings alone. We need new revenue. And we need a structural reset in our relationship with the state. Because a crisis of this scale cannot be solved without state action. I want to be clear. We are not simply asking others to act. New York City is doing our part. We are committed to governing with the fiscal responsibility this moment demands. Speaker Menon and I have already identified meaningful savings, but we cannot do it alone. That is why we are standing together this morning to underscore what is at stake and to call on Albany to deliver additional revenue.
Call on Albany to deliver additional revenue? I thought Zorro was solving the economic problems in New York City by taxing the people responsible for driving the economy. Hell, just last Friday, Zoran Mamdani published a video on social media where Zorro is standing in front of the home or the mansion of billionaire Ken Griffin. Look, guys, this man is rich. He is rich and you are poor. But that's okay, because I'm going to take all his money and donate it to mosques throughout the city. Zorro will deliver fiscal equity to all third world New Yorkers. 72 hours later, Zohran Mamdani was showing his appreciation for Ken Griffin. Why? Because Ken Griffin made a sizable donation to the 9/11 Memorial Fund. One of the reasons, and it's not the only reason, but one of the reasons rich people donate money to charity, it is to ease their tax burden. And it's not just wealthy people that do this. Once I finish paying everything off, Uncle Casey will be donating every year to animal shelters or the oncology hospital up at Auburn, so people who can't afford to treat their dogs with cancer can get their dogs the treatment that they need. I would much rather give my money to causes like that instead of handing it over to the government so they can continue funding important research into the non-binary in Pakistan. You will never tax your way out of a problem, and I think Zoran Mamdani knows it. Zorro is no dummy. I know he's never had a real job, but don't let the happy-go-lucky doofus gimmick fool you. Zoran Mandani, very smart dude. Throughout his campaign, New Yorkers were warned that the promises Zorro was making, these promises were not possible. Now, most in the media, they were focusing on the fact that Zoran Mamdani was a democratic socialist. When translated from polished turd to English, democratic socialist translates to communist. But like I have been telling you guys since last summer, I believe communism is the illusion that Zorro is using to hide his true intentions, which is to turn New York City into an Islamic paradise, decrease the American-born population while increasing the Islamist population. In 1950, 90% of New York City consisted of white Americans. That number maintained with the influx of immigrants because they were coming from Italy, Poland, Spain, other countries in Europe. Today, almost 40% of New Yorkers, they were born outside of America, with nearly 10% of the population identifying as Muslim. The average New Yorker is 37 years old. The average Islamic New Yorker, 28. This is the main reason that Zoran Mandani got elected. He wasn't elected by native New Yorkers or American-born New Yorkers. For the most part, Zorro was elected by people who were born in other countries. And with his policies, the demographics of New York City could shift even further. Billionaires, they have egos. They don't like to be taken advantage of. We're already seeing major corporations move jobs out of New York City into Texas or Florida. What happens when those jobs move? The people move along with them. This is just my own personal theory, but I think Zoran Mamdani is using communism to implement Islamism. In the 1970s, this strategy worked to perfection in Iran. The communists and Islamists, they worked together. They destabilized the population. They overthrew the government. At that point, it was a fight between the communists and the Islamists to see who would control the country. Now, obviously, the Islamists won, and what's one of the first things that they did? They got rid of the communists. We're watching something similar right now in New York City. Thankfully, Zoran Mamdani is having to fight, and it seems like he is losing, but to his credit, Zoran Mandani has a lot of support. This is not the New York City of September 10th, 2001. It's damn sure not the New York City of the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. The demographics have shifted, and if New York sees 8 years of Zoran Mamdani, I don't know if the city ever recovers. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys later.